Yeah. Start recording. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Riggs. Thank you so much. Oh, and just as a quick reminder, if you are not speaking at this time, if you could put yourself on mute so we can minimize the feedback, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you all for having me. And I heard y'all had a great presentation and discussion yesterday. So I will try to go through our information a bit quicker, and would be also happy to answer questions as we have further discussion. So just really appreciate you all having me today, and hope you all are having a great Sunday afternoon. So I'm going to quickly go through what's in the Choose How You Move program, why we chose those elements of the program, what's the cost, so how it impacts you out of your wallet or pocketbook, and then when will we get the benefits. Key thing that Laura already mentioned was that we'll have a chance to decide on this on November 5th. So it will be the last item that you will see on your ballot. This is the ballot language, and you'll see three paragraphs. The first paragraph refers back to the ordinance that was adopted by Metro Council and the elements of the program. So we'll talk through the sidewalks, the signals, service and safety improvements that are proposed with the program. And then the second paragraph outlines the costs in today's dollars. So there's a capital project cost, and then also an annual operating and maintenance cost, and then the agencies that will be implementing the program. And then the final paragraph is really what is being asked of voters, which is how we pay for the program. So we'll be funding it through federal grants, revenues from system fares, debt, and then a sales tax surcharge of 0.5% or a half penny on each dollar. And so you'll be asked then to either vote for or against. And if you want to implement the Choose How You Move program, you would select for. And if you do not want to implement the Choose How You Move program, you would select against. So in covering the four elements of the program, let's first start with sidewalks. Choose How You Move is how we will add or upgrade 86 miles of sidewalks. And so this is a good example of where we are really addressing a lot of our sidewalk needs that are very urgent, almost triaging them on many of our pikes and main corridors. So this is where, in this example, in Dickerson Pike, we have a mom who's pushing a stroller. She's in a ditch. Dickerson is one of those roads that just in regular rainfall will sometimes block a lane. And so we have pedestrians and people crossing these streets now trying to access bus stops and get where they need to go. It's also where we're seeing a lot of our serious injuries and fatalities where vehicles are hitting people, oftentimes at night. And so this is an opportunity to upgrade our sidewalks and in some instances upgrade our streets that we'll talk a little bit more about. So Choose How You Move completes our priority sidewalk network. So those are those most urgent needs. And to put it in perspective, we were able to construct about 6.5 miles of sidewalk last year. So this helps us accelerate delivery of sidewalk construction throughout the county going forward. So our second S, we've talked sidewalks, and hopefully it's not too loud on your end. I'm going to cut it off. That way it doesn't keep going to help all our ears. So you'll remember logging on to the internet back in the 90s, and we now have this technology at our fingertips day to day. And we have a signal system that is really outdated. So about 10% of our signals are not connected to any sort of communication. We have a portion of them that are connected to antiquated copper wire. And we've just gotten off of dialing in on some of our signals where we're using cell phone technology on it. You see this when you are at a big event downtown and we have a police officer and they're doing a really good job of clearing the intersection. They've got the traffic signal cabinet open and they've usually got a button that they're manually overriding the intersection. Unfortunately, 3 or 4 intersections down, you usually run into backed up traffic, and it's a very frustrating experience. And it's because we can't see our traffic signals along the whole corridor. We don't have the analytics, the technology that's running behind the scenes, helping us adjust traffic flow in real time. And so Choose How You Move will help us update nearly 600 traffic signals. So that's about 2/3 of our signals all across the county, and even getting them very close to the county line. So we'll be able to connect in with other city systems, so like Hendersonville, Mount Juliet, even down to Rutherford County. And those will be connected into a new traffic management center that was just launched in the last couple of weeks. So this new center only has about 70 intersections right now that is being monitored, and we'll be able to bring on our traffic signal system using real-time analytics to make traffic and buses flow much easier along our main corridors. So we've talked sidewalks and signals. The third S is service. So we'll be able to provide 24/7 transit service for the first time in Nashville's history through Choose How You Move. This will start on our busiest corridors. And today we have no transit service that operates between the hours of 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. And so Choose How You Move will help us address those needs for those that work an overnight shift and get off early in the morning, or have to begin work at early morning hours. So think of your servers, hospitality workers all downtown who are paying for parking. Also, think of nurses, other medical and safety professionals that maybe start a really early morning shift. They have no other way to get to their job other than to drive, take an Uber, a Lyft, or a taxi to get to their jobs or to leave their jobs during those hours. And so this expansion of service to 24/7 really helps address needs of a 24/7 workforce. The backbone of this is 54 miles of all access corridors. So those all access corridors are our busiest corridors. So think Dickerson, Murfreesboro, Nolensville Pike, Gallatin Pike, parts of Charlotte Pike and West End, and Clarksville Pike, where we are doing everything. So taking the state of the infrastructure that we have there today and making sure we fill in sidewalk gaps, upgrade all of the traffic signals to work better for cars and for buses, provide service along those streets reliably every 15 minutes or better, and then improve those safety conditions from that first photo that I showed you on Dickerson Road. So the lighting would be improved, crossings would be added so that people can get where they need to go on those main corridors. Also, part of our service improvements are a dozen transit centers where riders will be able to connect in neighborhood to neighborhood. Today, we send a lot of our WeGo riders into downtown and back out if they need to go somewhere across the county. And so this will greatly reduce the amount of travel time that they experience. And then we've got 17 park and rides that are included in the program. And that's where if you're not on a transit line or don't have sidewalks that connect directly to you to a bus stop, you would be able to drive and connect into the WeGo system. And that will also help us regionally as our neighbors or would be able to drive into a park and ride lot and connect into the bus system there at the park and rides. So we've talked sidewalks, signals, service. The final S is safety. So by overlaying all of these improvements, we're able to upgrade nearly 300 bus stops, redesign 35 high injury intersections where we're experiencing a high number of injuries and fatalities, and also add 35 miles of bikeways. So we feel strongly, this is an example from Madison where we have done really safe infrastructure. There is elements for each person, so people walking, biking, driving, being able to cross the street safely. And so you see that on the left from Madison Station Boulevard. And we need to do more projects like that. And an example of this is Old Hickory Boulevard in Madison, where someone who is crossing the street today has to walk in a ditch. There's a bus stop that has no shelter there, and there's no crosswalks as well.
Excuse me, Michael, I can't see the slides. Did we put up the slides? I know there was a picture of the Madison sidewalks.
Is anyone else having trouble?
I can see the slides.
Yeah, I'm not having any trouble, Michael.
Maybe I have chat and stuff open. Okay, keep on going. I saw them yesterday.
Sorry. Okay, thanks, Kara. And so we pulled the elements of the program based on 70 plans done in the past decade. So this is not anything new. And it's based on 66,000 pieces of input that we've heard from residents. And at the end of the day, we really want this to drive down the cost of living. Because this matters, because people are struggling in Nashville. With housing prices increasing, this is a way that we can drive down the costs. So it's our ability to be able to extend the life of our current vehicles, maybe avoid parking charges in some instances if you're going downtown, avoid having to buy another vehicle if you've got a teenager that is really needing to get around town. And then at the end of the day, we will help you save money because our signal system will be working much better. And so that even means saving on gas money. And so this is important as well because the way it impacts you at the pocketbook or wallet at the end of the day is when you spend $50 at Target, you'll pay an additional quarter. And so that's about $6 per month for most households. And that quarter or half penny is being used to leverage additional federal money. So this is an opportunity for us to bring back federal money that we pay today to Nashville. And so Nashville is one of 4 cities of the top 50 US cities that has no dedicated transportation funding source. And so cities like Kansas City, Indianapolis are able to compete for federal money much easier than we can because we're one of those 4 cities that do not have the dedicated funding. So this half penny or 25 cents on every $50 is going to a dedicated program for implementation of Choose How You Move. There's 2 other things that are unique about this cost to you is that the half penny increase aligns our sales tax now with most surrounding counties. So Davidson County has the lowest sales tax rate in the area. And so if you go to Cool Springs or Murfreesboro, the Avenue, or Providence and Mount Juliet, you're paying this sales tax rate, which is a 9.75%. And Davidson County's rate is currently 9.25%. So it brings us in line with our surrounding counties. The second thing is that we estimate 60% of sales tax being paid by visitors. So that's someone that lives in Hendersonville, works in Nashville, buys lunch. They're going to help contribute to the program. And then anytime we have bachelorettes that are in town, they're buying souvenirs, t-shirts, beer, they're going to help contribute to this program. This is really essential infrastructure for Nashvillians. So we'll be able to deliver the program in 15 years, but you'll see elements of it much sooner. So it'll have a year 1 and year 2 impact, where we'll be able to start expanding some of the service on WeGo. There's a low-income fare program where we'll be able to have a enabled quick ticket account for WeGo riders that qualify for housing and nutrition assistance. And so we intend to have that going in the first few years of the program. And that'll be the first time in Nashville's history that we've been able to offer free rides for those that qualify. We'll continue to implement things like sidewalks, upgrading traffic signals, having discussions as to what the design of the all access corridors will look like, and then have the program complete in 15 years. So you can find out more about the program at nashville.gov/transit. There's an interactive map. There's also about a 100-page PDF where you can go through the details of the document, review the cash flows, and learn more about it. You can also zoom into your part of the county and see what projects and programs are planned. And so all of that is there on the website for you to learn more. So I want to thank you all for the time, and I'm happy to take questions, or if you all want to have our other presenters go in and take questions, happy to handle either way. Thank you all.
Does anybody have a question right now? Tina.
Okay, Michael, I have a couple questions. I know you said we can go to nashville.gov/transit to see the details of the plan. Will that tell us where the 12 transit centers are going to be located and the 17 park and ride areas?
Yes. So when you get into the document, there are several pages there, and I can follow up afterwards to tell you exactly which page it's on. But there's a few maps that show you the locations of those, both of the transit centers and the park and rides. So on the park and rides, you're looking for usually a pink oval on some of the maps or pink circle. And then on the transit centers, you're usually looking for a bus icon. So there's info within the document, and then on the interactive maps, you'll see those pink circles and then the bus icons.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So next up is Emily Evans from Committee to Stop Unfair Taxation. I'm going to set you for 12 minutes, Emily.
Okay, Karen, thank you very much. And thanks again, y'all, for changing the schedule or adding this to the schedule. I really appreciate it, and I know your members do as well. So I want to start with kind of the reason for our interest and my interest in particular. I was a council member for 9 years, representing the great Tina Cohen, and I spent a lot of time on fiscal issues. My background is in finance, specifically municipal finance. And so I've spent a lot of time on our city budget. And one of the things that has greatly concerned me in recent years, particularly since around 2010, is the pursuit of policies that cost everybody a lot of money, but benefit a very small number of people. And that began with the convention center, which was a fairly substantial tax assessed on the hotel and lodging industry, for the benefit of a building at downtown that stays empty, most of the time. The second issue that has emerged really since 2016 is our population growth. And I'm just going to share a little bit of, there we go, share that. Our population really started flatlining. Can you see that okay? Yeah. Oops. Let me do that one. Our population is, can you see that okay? I'm sorry.
Yes.
We can see it as
okay.
the non-presentation view, but that's okay. We see the purple graph.
Yeah, purple graph. The population, our population growth really started flatlining in 2016, and which is, a slow, steady growth in population is fine. We experienced pretty dramatic declines in 2021, probably when our schools were closed. We also had a 34% property tax increase, which by the historical standards of Nashville is a fairly big price shock. And that hits both our residential property owners as well as our renters, because that has to be passed through. Population is not quite recovered. More concerning is that the age makeup of Davidson County. We're losing people who are younger. We're losing families who are struggling with the affordability issue. So that's kind of the backdrop for what we're kind of concerned about. And as far as this plan goes, against that backdrop, we have three areas that we're very focused on. The first is the unfairness of the plan. When you're talking about families struggling, it's fairly counterintuitive that you would try and make life more affordable by taxing them more. We usually try and avoid taxes when we're making things more affordable, not less. Sales taxes are highly regressive. This is well known, and because they hit the poor disproportionately hard. And you see some former NOAA board members kind of spinning off and making this point as well. And I've heard this in the community. The cost, total cost, Mr. Briggs correctly pointed out, it's $3.2 billion in today's money, but we don't purchase things in today's money. We purchase them over time. And the truth in lending number, if you will, when you buy a car or a house, there's always, a number at the bottom of the page, which is twice whatever you think you're paying. But the true cost is $6.9 billion over the course of the program, which is fairly substantial. The connection that transit funding from the federal government has made to zoning reform locally has gathered a lot of concern as well across the country. If you care to Google zoning reform and transit, you will see what I mean. And that is that the federal government since May of 2022 has instructed the Department of Transportation to link its discretionary federal grants to zoning reform being implemented in the counties in which they're applying for the grants. You may remember a program called NEST, which was offered by Councilmember Quinn Evans Siegel, which called for things that we really fought hard against when I was in office, which would be, for example, Westmead, which is one of the most beautiful places in this county, but I could also count Bordeaux and Whites Creek having very vigorously defended itself against some densification that just did not go with the neighborhood. And this incentive created by the federal government will do what incentives of that size always do, which is push people to do things that they may not have done otherwise because the economic pressure of those incentives are so significant. The second bucket we put our concerns is unsafe. Mr. Briggs pointed out this will run 24/7, 365. Things that run 24/7, 365 inherently need more security. Is why when you go into a 24-hour MAPCO or a 24-hour 7-Eleven, the clerk is highly secured with lots of plexiglass and cameras. That's just a sad fact of the world that we live in, but it's been true for as long as people have walked the earth, I suspect. There's no approval or any pending plan for increased security. And then lastly, and I'm going to share another screen here. Lastly, we think the plan is unnecessary. Although we talk about traffic, the fact of the matter is hold on a sec. Can you see that okay? Karen?
Yes,
okay.
The percent of workers commuting.
But percent of workers commuting, this is from the Census Bureau. I'm using the 2019 report simply because when you start adding the public health emergency period, you start really skewing the data. But as you can see, the percent of workers commuting by public transportation has fallen fairly precipitously since 1960. Why is that? It's because taking mass transportation, notwithstanding 24/7 schedules or more routes or everything that everybody has tried over these last few years, and the federal government has tried to incentivize, and in some cases state government, the number of workers using public transportation has fallen from 12% to 5%. And if you look on this next slide, again, this is from the Census Bureau, you can see there's only a handful of cities or MSAs in this country that are relying on public transportation to move their workers around. And these are cities: New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Boston, Philadelphia, with the exception of Washington, arguably Los Angeles, and Seattle. These cities developed, or began their development in the 19th century. where economic decisions about transportation were far different than they are today, especially with respect to the price of gas, with respect to the price of automobiles. In the 1950s, you picked an American automobile or you picked an American automobile, and you didn't get to, really, go for the Kia. Nashville, according to one economist at TSU, and using this same data, the American Community Survey, less than 10,000 people rely on MTA for their transportation to work. All of these cities have tried over the years to enhance their transit systems by offering more routes or more incentives or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, it comes down to an economic decision. Do you want to ride the bus or do you not? So that's kind of how we view the problem. And one of the things that, we have suggested is that to the mayor's office and others is that mobility and the technology around mobility continues to advance fairly dramatically. And with the federal grants that kind of slash you to your idea from 30 years ago, being able to be nimble and adopt to the new mobility technologies is going to be difficult if we go this route. And that's it. Is that a 3-minute warning? Oh, gosh, Karen, so glad you so glad you didn't give me the cattle prod. but I got in under the wire, right? Okay, you're muted.
Please finish your thought. Yeah, 3-minute warning. Go ahead.
Okay. The what I was going to say, just to finalize it, what we would one of the things that is missing, I think, from this plan is the advances in mobility, and there are a number of things emerging. Glideways, which is really cool. It also uses a dedicated lane, but a low wheelbase autonomous vehicle that's entering the Atlanta market. Las Vegas, for example, has a ridership on demand for their service workers. So you can actually, the bus route is determined not by the fixed route that the government orders, but by the demand from the people that need it. And there are other things that are emerging. I mean, Uber has a contract with their state Medicaid agency, for example, to move people to appointments and to work. So we have an emerging and very exciting period before us as far as mobility, and just sticking ourselves in this 20th century model. It obviously doesn't work in other cities, and it's probably not going to work here. And that's it.
Very interesting. Okay, let's open the floor for any questions directly to Emily Evans. Thank you, Emily. I don't think anyone has their hands raised right now. I have learned from you about the future, looking into the future for the other types of transportation. And we have our Vice Mayor, Angie Henderson, to speak on how Nashville moves.
Thank you very much, Karen. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the panel and take kind of the pro position for the transportation referendum. And so I have served on the council, much like Ms. Evans. I served 8 years, and my 9th year has been as vice mayor, as the president of the city council. When I was on the council, majority of my policy work was around sidewalks, mobility. I served on the Public Works Committee for 8 years, twice as the vice chair, once as chair, and then my colleagues as well elected me to represent them on the Traffic and Parking Commission. And so this has long been my area of policy interest. And so to that end, I have appreciated the opportunity to engage around this plan, to participate in the Technical Advisory Committee, I am in somewhat of a unique position in serving on that committee. A few others among us, I was opposed to the plan in 2018, very reluctantly, in fact, because I believe strongly in dedicated funding for transportation. I think it really is necessary for a public asset like a transportation system. From an operational perspective. So, this plan, I think, is a very prudent plan. It is $2 billion less out of the gate. I did not support the last plan because it was 5 short corridors of light rail and $1 billion tunnel. And as we've seen, cost escalations on delivery of light rail, they're quite significant. So I just did not think the previous plan was a fiscally prudent plan for a city as large as Nashville. We were the first city-county consolidated government in the United States of America, so we are 526 square miles. And as such, we have some unique opportunities, but also challenges, really trying to deliver a multimodal system at scale. So when we kind of boomed and grew and sprawled, much like a lot of other kind of Sunbelt cities post WW2, we were not requiring sidewalks. And so that's kind of what you see in Mr. Briggs's early slide, the mom on the side of the road. And you would not just find that along Dickerson Pike. You can find it out in my area. I represented District 34 in Southwest Nashville. So parts of Green Hills, Bellevue, all of Forest Hills, parts of Oak Hill, right adjacent to Westmead. And so, that is true too as well for folks taking our 3B bus, say, out to Bellevue. That is the bus that I ride occasionally. I don't purport to ride it often because when I am going downtown to work downtown, not going elsewhere other than within maybe walking distance and they meet it downtown, maybe meeting a friend for lunch or going to another meeting down there, I can make the current system work for me. But if I need to go cross town or elsewhere, I'm going to drive my 13, 14-year-old minivan downtown. So, riding the 3B, I do have that experience of engaging the system now, with the transit app and my quick ticket. And I have been a daily transit rider in all the other cities in which I have lived. And so, Ms. Evans highlighted the decline in kind of commuting ridership generally in the United States. But I would share with you that Nashville is particularly well positioned per a presentation that I really enjoyed at the National League of Cities Large City Council Presidents convening from Tracy Lowe at the Brookings Institute. We are really doing great comparative to our peer cities. We are at 101% of pre-pandemic ridership. So our ridership is going up. We are also uniquely economically based on our tourism industry and healthcare industries and others. Our workforce and the folks with the riding the system, we are uniquely positioned to have a higher ridership relative to some of our other cities that are seeing kind of more of that sort of, white collar, go to work, traditional kind of down and back commute. So I was pleased to see that from the Brookings Institute indicating that we were kind of well positioned. I do want to sort of engage around, all the kind of, future innovation kind of stuff will save us or solve these problems. And I would refute that because what we have in traffic congestion is a geometry problem. And so, whether it's robo taxis, autonomous vehicles on demand, that does not solve the geometry problem of congestion. Okay, so Las Vegas is not really a model in my view, because they seem very enamored of kind of, like the Elon Musk Tesla tunnels in between your casinos and so forth, which just on basic geometry don't work. So I think folks often kind of advance these sort of shiny disco balls of, robo-taxis and autonomous vehicles, but the basic geometry and math do not change. And so fixed routes, they're not some government locking you into something. They're highly efficient. Okay, fixed routes are highly efficient. And with the distributed network that is being proposed with many more crosstown routes, we are not kind of locking people into opportunities only along these corridors. In fact, we are expanding opportunity and affordability for all of Nashville, comparative to the last plan, which I felt only benefited a certain kind of cohort really in our core older city of Nashville, where you had existing sidewalk requirements. So, Ms. Evans often mentions glideways, dropping a few names of cities that might be engaging that. But, glideways is also a fixed system. And I think it might work very well for, say, a corporate campus or a university campus, right? If you have a distinct footprint that is entirely within your control. But a glideway or an autonomous vehicle and so forth, those are no more successful or deliverable or better than your just good old basic excellent bus service. So what I say to folks is buses aren't sexy, but they really are the most practical, frugal system that we can deliver at scale. So, as to kind of our population and our economy, I just think, Nashville is doing well despite some really significant challenges of late. We had 3 mayors in a time when we had one in a tornado and a derecho and a pandemic and a flood and all that. And we are really still doing very well as a city as it relates to our economy. As you all heard Mr. Briggs share, 60% of our sales tax almost is coming from our visitors or people external to our counties. I do want to speak specifically to the concerns around zoning reform, myself having done the majority of my policy work in Title 17, which is our zoning code, and that being a big chunk of the work that the council does. As Ms. Evans shared, the kind of NEST package, which understandably did raise a fair amount of concern. There were some good bills in there. 1, 2, or 3 of those have subsequently passed. One among them being where we have commercial zoning now. We can deliver residential zoning there too. And so I think the policy that was advanced and never got past first reading was regarding residential zoning and neighborhoods. And so it was not a policy supported by most of the council, advanced by kind of a new member. And so, I don't want Nashvillians to be concerned that there is kind of, I'm concerned that there's somewhat of a conflation or advancing a comprehensive. While the federal funding model, saying my internet connection is unstable. Can you all still hear me?
You're better now. We lost you.
Okay, I apologize. I was speaking to what I was concerned was sort of a conflation in recent zoning proposals and the information from the White House and the federal government as to funding, federal partnership funding. And, I think there is perhaps a minor little bonus that one might have in the funding model if one were to be implementing zoning reforms. But what I want to share with you all is we are already implementing zoning reforms. Those have been the elimination of parking minimums. That is in our Title 17 zoning code. It is a great a boon for affordability, reduction of traffic, elimination of our parking minimums on our high capacity transit corridors. And we've also eliminated our parking minimums in our urban zoning overlay. So that's a zoning reform, as was Mr. Horton's zoning reform around being able to develop multifamily residential where we have commercial. So we can do those iterative, gentle density zoning reforms, and we are doing those. And so the primary kind of boost for federal funding is dedicated funding. So a dedicated revenue stream. Mr. Briggs highlighted, but I'll just say it again, among the top 50 cities by population, we are one of only 4 without that dedicated funding. And so that really becomes, if we are able to effectuate this and folks do vote for the referendum, that becomes both a force multiplier to our current capital program of sidewalks. This city council has been funding into sidewalks, safety improvements into our transit system. But we simply, as far behind as we are, 80 years, some 80 years behind, because we did not require sidewalks as we boomed and grew. And so you cannot take the bus if you can't walk to the bus. This plan delivers in 15 years those associated sidewalks, brings the dedicated funding that can bring back federal dollars and really help us deliver and kind of fill the gap from our historic deficits. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. New experience for me to cut somebody off.
Oh, no, I apologize. I saw the 3-minute warning. Yeah. I hope I pulled it together at the end.
While we have 10 minutes or so left, let's open it up to our participants. A few of you, please tell us your perspective, where you live, how this will impact where you live. Anybody? Pat, you want to talk for a second? I see Kathy, Constance, Mary Ellen.
I grew up in New York and Chicago, and I just find it very frustrating to not be able to take the bus, take something somewhere. It's just kind of insane. You have car troubles, whatever, and then you have to call a cab or an Uber, which, I should be able to just walk to the bus. And I like fixing the signals. When I used to drive to college in the 70s, I remember I used to go down this long road that went through 3 towns, and I would try to make all the lights. I would try to find the right speed, and you can't do that around here. The lights, you just get stuck at every red light. It's very frustrating. We're way out of date.
Yeah, Kathy Carlson, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to say, for the purposes of disclosure, I'm a freelance writer, and I will be writing about transit for the Ledger. And I believe it's for the October 25th issue, but I have to turn it in next week. But if there's any way I can get people's email or phone number so I can contact them, and I'm talking about Michael Briggs, Emily Evans, and Angie Henderson, I probably will give you a buzz in the next day or so. And I just wanted to say, just personally, I I may be going out of town next week. I took a ride out to the airport. And I'll tell you what, for a Sunday mid-afternoon after lunch, I was shocked how many people there were and how many bottlenecks seemed to be around the airport. And I would gladly jump on a bus to go out to the airport. And I looked online and I really couldn't see anything that would help me right now make it out to the airport in time to get on the plane. And that, I mean, that's my main objective. I don't want to be late for the plane, but that's just a personal observation. And anyway, it was an experience. I'm glad I drove out, and that's all for now.
Yeah, Kathy, I'll add one of the, and I put my email address in the chat, which hasn't changed. Hasn't changed since.
Great, thank you, Groovy.
Yeah, since.
I know I've talked before.
Yeah, are you still in Westmead?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So just a comment on the airport thing. Some of these innovations and specifically, Glideways, Uber, that's been a big part of their business as well. And it's not exclusive to that. These are just innovations that the airports are usually a focus of a transit plan because you have a defined group of people, being being released from their air travel who usually need to go to a fairly easily identifiable part of town. And that creates a market, if you will, a definable market. My industry would call it the TAM, total addressable market, that allows you to kind of get a start on that technology or get a start on that. And that is, of course, missing from this plan, which I have heard in the many, many community meetings that I have been involved in since I started this. That is a something that gets reiterated by people a lot.
Well, I had no clue. Maybe it was just a bad day with fall break and all that stuff, but
yeah, I use Uber. I use Uber Reserve now. I don't even, that's been my response to it because I'm just sort of like you. I never know what I'm going to get.
Well, I don't use Uber, and I have reasons for not, but I don't know. It's a big problem. Just saying.
Well, Kathy, if I may,
Sure.
this plan does address access to the airport, and that
good.
is something that I know the mayor's administration and the council. We had an initial tour with B&A leadership early on to kind of understand the airport campus, intended improvements, capacity issues. And I encourage my colleagues when we went to our National League of Cities convention last year, several among us took the bus to kind of experience. But it's really, for a city of our size at this moment, the headways running on the bus and the sort of circuitous route to get there is not optimal for the folks working at the airport. They have a huge workforce, and that's really important. So it's the people, coming to Nashville that need it, the workforce as well, those of us going other places. I think we all experience, Pat mentioned, Chicago, New York. I know my family very particularly would choose much for, like a fall break, a destination where we did not have to use our car, right? We could drive there, get on transit, leave the airport. And so the Murfreesboro Pike corridor, we have a really significant amount of right-of-way in the Murfreesboro Pike corridor that is adjacent to our airport. Redesigned components of the airport are already designed for ingress and egress of whether it be BRT, light rail, whatever it might be in time. And so that Murfreesboro Pike corridor has our highest ridership currently. It has our most significant amount of right-of-way to deliver something like a BRT that in other areas of town, say on the west side or elsewhere with a more constrained right-of-way, might not be optimal. But transit to and from the airport on frequent headways that's functional for people already taking that line and for our touristic economy is very much in this plan.
Hello, Debbie. I see your square came on. We're just having a few minutes if anybody would like to share a personal thought about the referendum or commuting.
Okay. Well, I'm Joy, and thank you all for doing this. And obviously, I had a conflict earlier, and just thought I'd come in to hear the tail end of it. But I have to say that I'm one of those lucky people that's on one of the best bus corridors in town, which is the Hillsborough corridor that goes downtown. And I am always surprised by not just the number of people who use it, but the range of people who use it. I mean, it's really clear that there is the entire spectrum of people in business suits to people who clearly are not on their way to anywhere today, just riding because they don't have an occupation. So I think it's really helpful, and I can see how important it is, and how that corridor has grown up along the Hillsborough route because the bus is there. And I think that's an important element, is that you really get different kinds of businesses along bus routes.
Thank you, Debbie. And there was a chat question from Barbara. Okay. If this plan does not pass, does the council have a backup? Emily mentioned robot cars, but they may not be affordable. And then on-demand transportation is the proper word.
Yeah, no, robot, we do not have the climate for autonomous vehicles, at least not now, unless they're in a dedicated lane, which is kind of the Glideways model. Rain and snow, they just completely mess with the LiDAR system and the other sensors that the robot cars depend on. And that's why you see them demoed in places like Las Vegas, right? Because it doesn't have a lot of rain and snow.
Yeah, I would concur with Ms. Evans on that. Robot cars are not coming to save us. And so on demand, rideshare also does not solve for traffic congestion. And in fact, early on, Uber and your companies like that were working really hard to make sure that cities did not get their ridership data, because in time, once cities finally got that data, what it showed is autonomous vehicles, in fact, increase traffic, right? So the fact they're going downtown, the game's getting out with the Preds.
They're not autonomous.
I understand they're not autonomous. Ride share, right? Understood. Ride share, yeah. Uber, Lyft, etc. Yeah. Ride share increases traffic.
Well, I think my counterpoint to that, Barbara, is that when the private market enters the mobility demand, when the private market is trying to solve for mobility, they're not super interested in what the government is saying or is not saying. And this is what, in New York, for example, the medallions for taxis, which was a very unpleasant experience, those things were $200,000 a piece. And what happened, Uber enters the market and drives the price of those medallions down. And they do it after approval from the Taxi and Limousine Commission. They do it generally, based on the demand from the public. And one of the points I've made, for many people is that when a mobility solution is demanded by people who live in a particular city because they're not satisfied with what is offered, either bus rides or subway or whatever, they will gravitate to other solutions. And that's why Uber has been so extremely popular. And that's why you're going to see other solutions like that develop as well. It's just, we don't have anything to say about it. It just happens.
I would make the point that the subways in New York are packed, and as they have improved crosstown bus service, which used to not be very good in New York, its ridership has increased, and probably the best multimodal solution that is novel that is being delivered in New York today with associated bikeway infrastructure is City Bike. The ridership on bike share is very high in New York, and that reduces traffic. So again, on-demand rideshare Uber does not solve for traffic congestion. In fact, it creates more traffic congestion.
We have a few more minutes. Anybody else? Well, then I will conclude. Debbie and Laura and Pat, we appreciate, I'm speaking for Debbie, Laura, and Pat. We appreciate everybody's time today to discuss and listen to each other in a civil manner, learn as much as we can. Our final thought is for the registered voters that you know, make sure they have a plan, make sure that they can start early voting October 16th, and let's find the best solution and let's hear from our population of how they vote. So thank you, Vice Mayor Henderson, for your leadership. Thank you, Emily Evans, for your smart perspective. And thank you, Michael Briggs, for bringing the message from the mayor's office. We appreciate you.
Thanks,
Have
Karen.
a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you all.